Hey guys, ever wondered what we do with the national teams to determine their current fitness levels?
Change to speed 9. 9, 1.
So the next test I'm going to show you is the 30-15. So for the 30-15, you're running for 30 seconds, resting for 15. Final test we're going to look at is the linear 30-meter sprint. Hi guys, so welcome back. As promised, in part 2 we're going to take you through the application, the utilization, as well as the interpretation of the data we would collect for the 30-15 IFT, the yo-yo intermittent recovery test, as well as a 40-meter sprint test. How we take that data that the athletes achieved in those tests, how we interpret it, how we analyze it, and how we present it in a way that we can use it to individualize the conditioning strategies we apply at the national team level. So for the next 90 seconds, take some notes, and I hope you can use some of this information to prescribe your conditioning strategies wherever you may be working with up-and-coming hockey players. So, as we know, we've got 3 tests, we've got 3 different numbers and 1 decision to make, and that decision is how we individualize our programming to fit each athlete within our squad. It's important to remember though, we only use either one of the IR1 or 30-15, not both, because essentially they're both measuring aerobic capacity. However, for us, the 30-15 is what we have moved to because I feel it's a stronger indicator of the maximum aerobic speed of team sport athletes, and we can also use it as a proxy for VO2 max through a formula-based interpretation. Then we also got the 40-meter sprint test where we look at maximum velocity achieved. And how we do that is over the 40 meters, we got 10-meter intervals. And in the final interval of 10 meters between 30 and 40, we got a flying 10-meter, which determines the maximum velocity achieved in that test. Once we got that data, we can interpret it with different metrics to ensure we can individualize the conditioning strategies. So different values we look at. We look at something called your maximum aerobic speed. So the maximum aerobic speed is the value that the athlete achieves when they pulled out of that test. What is the final score that they get? So for example, for us in the 30-15, if an athlete achieves 19 kilometers an hour, we know that that's going to be around about 5.2 meters per second. So 19 divided by 3.6 will give us 5.2 meters per second. However, to take the directional changes into account, we're going to multiply that by either 0.85 to around about 0.9 to interpret it more accurately from a team sport maximum aerobic speed perspective, which would give us a score around 4.5 meters per second or 16 kilometers an hour for maximum aerobic speed for that athlete. So then we go to maximum sprint velocity. What is their maximum speed over the flying 10 meter? With those 2 values, we're able to get the anaerobic speed reserve. And anaerobic speed reserve is maximum sprint speed minus your maximum aerobic speed achieved. And that allows us to interpret the data and prescribe individualized conditioning sessions. However, there are different profiles with different athletes, and how we determine that is through something called your speed reserve ratio. And the speed reserve ratio is your maximum sprint speed divided by your maximum aerobic speed. And this allows us to get the different profiles of who is maybe a more speed dominant athlete, who is a more aerobically dominant athlete, and who is maybe a mixed hybrid so-called athlete. And then we can prescribe our conditioning strategy accordingly. So this is an example of how we can interpret a squad data. We'll get a spread of different values on maybe who is maybe a bit more speed dominant, which we can see in the orange dots over there, who is more maybe mixed dominant, who is see in the gray dots, and maybe who is more aerobically dominant. And we can also relate that back to positions. So maybe, for example, with midfielders and defenders, they might be a mixed or aerobically dominant players. So maybe defenders more on the aerobically dominant side, the midfielders might be on the side of the mixed dominant, and then maybe your strikers will be on the higher speed dominant or in the lower end of the speed dominant profiles. And then we can individualize it not only according to the individual results that the players achieve in the test, but also relative to their positions. Once we got that data, we're able to prescribe our conditioning sessions according to each individual's profile to ensure we get maximize their outputs for each session. For example, now we know that each player might have a different speed profile. Each player might be, some players might be mixed and some players might be aerobically dominant. And then we can break that down into seeing, okay, who of the squad needs more speed work, who of the squad needs more aerobic work, Or how do we build a squad where the repeat sprintability, which is a really important component in hockey, is maximized through individualizing their conditioning strategies according to the findings of the 3 tests that we spoke about. So once we know that, from the same data we get different prescriptions. So if someone's aerobically dominant, maybe we need to work on their repeat sprintability, maybe we need to work more on their speed. If someone's speed dominant, perhaps we need to work more on their aerobic capacity. Or in the mixed dominant players, we can work on either speed or aerobic performance or aerobic capacity to ensure that they are performing at their top level. The other school of thought is that if we have athletes who are more aerobically dominant, speed dominant, or mixed dominant, perhaps the prescription should be inclined to that preference for the athlete to improve their overall capacity, because their body is able to adapt to those prescriptions a little bit easier compared to trying to take a speed athlete and make them very aerobic, or making an aerobic athlete very fast, as an example. And that's it for part 2, guys. I hope that gives you a bit of insight into what we do at the national team level to individualize our conditioning strategies.